People who were shot or stabbed, what did you feel? I've been shot before, and you don't feel a thing except the sensation of being punched. Then about 2 to 5 minutes later, it's a nearly unimaginable sensation of burning and pain I can't describe from a location. Then you get cold and pass out, or so I did. Edit. Wow, this was bigger than I ever thought. So I guess I'll try to explain more. It was an accidental discharge from a friend of mine into my right arm. I passed out because I was scared in pain and hyperventilating, not bleeding to death. Although I did lose a whole bunch of blood, it wasn't a lethal amount. Being shot once doesn't make me a doctor. I know nothing about gunshot wounds beyond they hurt bad and took a long time to heal. As far as the cold goes, I don't know why I was cold either, or why it was burning so badly. I was too scared to really deal with that was going on. I got stabbed in the gut once. I was a dumb, angry kid, fighting with other dumb, angry kids. One of them pulled a knife and just stabbed me. He wasn't really aiming, I don't think, and I honestly didn't feel it really, just saw the blade get pushed into my gut over by the hip. I froze for a second, then punched the guy and took off running. I probably made about 10 to 15 feet before I collapsed, just holding the knife. Luckily, I had some friends there. They just kinda surrounded me while one of them called an ambulance. Last thing I remember was one of my buddies shouting something before I passed out. Woke up a few days later in the hospital, and I couldn't bend my abdomen at all. I didn't really feel any pain, just a constant throbbing around the area, but it did hurt like hell whenever I tried to bend over. Doc said there was no major damage done. The blade missed my intestines by about a cm. I got shot 6 times in a setup/robbery type situation almost 10 years ago. Went and bought some weed, and the guy I bought it from called his buddies that robbed me when I left. I got 1 in the armpit/shoulder, 2 in the chest, 2 in the stomach, 1 in the hip. I didn't necessarily feel pain anywhere, but my hip, where the bullet lodged into my hip bone and cracked it. I was so amped on adrenaline that I actually got back up and walked a few blocks bleeding everywhere to where the hospital was. Scared the entire lobby of people all to hell. But it didn't really hurt until I woke up from surgery a few days later. The broken ribs from the 2 in the chest were arguably worse than anything else. I got stabbed 3 times with a serrated kitchen steak knife. Hit my spleen, stomach, and heart. It was dark. A little fellow came at me swinging punches. I was still trying to defuse the situation, didn't want it to come to a fight, so I blocked the punches by slapping them downward. But he had a knife in each hand. I didn't feel the stabs, just felt like light punches to my torso. He turned and ran. I looked down and saw that I was drenched in blood. Walked a few steps and sat on the curb. Turned to a panic-stricken woman next to me and said, "I can't believe how tired I am." Then, asleep I went. TL doctor. I didn't really feel the stabs. Does a hockey skate count? More of a slicing and dicing than the old and out, but still. Hockey game. I was around 13 to 14, so right around that age where on the ice some kids have hit puberty and are damn near 6 foot, and other kids who haven't and are in the 5 range. I was a scrappy kid on the ice, but wasn't physically all that big. Just your average young teen. Open ice. This tall, awkward player on the other team was lining me up in the trolley tracks. He was the kind of player whom wasn't entirely solid on his new height. He was lanky and did not have great balance. Anyways, he lines me up to hit me, and I just drop my shoulder and take it. We both go down in a pretty solid hit. Legs all tangled up, and just a goofy few seconds while we got ourselves together. He got up first, stepped over me, and planted his skate on the inside of my thigh, and pushed off. None the wiser. I didn't feel much. Head was still ringing from the hit. Got up and skated around for another 15 seconds, getting back in the play. Felt what could be best described as loose hanging meat, but it was still somewhat held together due to my hockey gear. I looked down and realized my white hockey socks were just covered in blood, which is the only reason I realized what happened. Before this, the pain was just a light stinging. I skated to the bench, yelled, "Oh shit!" in a terrified way. The pitch and squeak of my voice clued the coaches in that something wasn't right. So they get me to the locker room, start taking my gear off to see how bad it was. A mother in the stands was a nurse, so she rushed into the locker room. Takes a good look and turns green, which wasn't a good sign in hindsight. My inner thigh was just sliced wide open and hanging out. Pain kicked in. Was not a clean cut due to the nature, so the pain was all over the place, as the cut was pretty jagged. The cut itself, when it happened, wasn't too bad, but the aftermath was the worst after I realized I could see the meat inside my leg. Got stitched up fine. Came real close to the femoral artery, which would have probably taken things to more dire manners. TLDR, got sliced open by a hockey skate. Filleted open. Hurt like hell, freaked out. Got stitched up, back on the ice 4 weeks later. I wasn't shot or stabbed, but I was in a Humvee that was blown up in Iraq in 2007. I use the word blown up lightly. Crew got a couple Purple Hearts, but nothing major happened. Vehicle was disabled, but we were able to salvage all our gear. I was in the rear left seat behind the driver during one summer day in northeast Baghdad in 2007, right in a tiny little Sunni area filled with anti-coalition sentiment. I remember our convoy turned down one road with no people, and I immediately got an eerie feeling. I even said boom in a low voice, which I don't remember, but everyone in my vehicle remembers. We were fourth vehicle in order of movement, and our convoy was trying to get the hell off this road, which we knew was going to be a problem the second we turned onto it. We were all following the tire tracks of the trucks ahead of us, assuming that any pressure plate-activated IED would blow up on truck number 1, and everyone else would be basically safe. Well, right after I said boom, which I don't recall, I had the distinct sensation of falling briefly and a bright flash, even though I don't think there was a flash in the truck, but I could be wrong. The back half of our truck lurched up in the air. I was probably knocked out at this point. I had a laptop sitting in my lap which smashed into my face, and I was out for a few seconds or so. I remember waking up, sort of. Ever jump into ice-cold water and have trouble breathing, and you're shaking like crazy everywhere? That happened. I was trying to figure out WTF was going on, and I could distinctly smell burnt hair. That's what slightly charred human flesh smells like, I think. My eyes were stinging. There was dust everywhere, and I panicked. I didn't know where I was or what I was doing there. I grabbed my weapon and opened the door to my truck and got out and fell down, and there was blood pouring onto the street mixing with the dust. I am told there was gunfire and our folks were returning fire, but I don't remember this. I think I was either in shock or temporarily deaf. People from the truck behind ran out and grabbed me, and we started recovery procedures for the truck once we fought our way out. I don't remember it all that well, but sometimes I still see it, particularly when trying to sleep. The pain was in my head and face. I had 2 big shiners, and my nose was smashed up and my lips were cut up from my own teeth. My back hurt a bit. Recently this manifested as a pars defect, which sucks. But at the time it wasn't pain, even though it wasn't a traditional fireball like in the movies. But all I remember is the shock of it all. In my dreams I always see bright flashes, so bright they hurt my eyes. And even when I wake up my eyes hurt. And sometimes I imagine loud booms. But in my dreams it's actually like the absence of noise, like someone just shut off the TV, and everything goes totally silent. It's crazy. I accidentally stabbed myself in the eye when I was young. It didn't hurt at all actually. It happened so quickly that I didn't even know what I did at first. 1 second I could see perfectly fine. The next I couldn't open my eye. When I tried to open my eye by my hands, I got a little lightheaded. So I decided to take a nap. At that point my brother got our dad. He tried to look at my eye, but it wouldn't open. He assumed an eyelash or some dirt got in it at first, but then realized it was something more serious. So he took my brother as I to a clinic. There, I had to wait over 2 hours to be seen. When I finally was seen, they just said I should go to the hospital. I was then rushed to the hospital and prepped for surgery. Today, my vision in that eye is blurry. It's like looking through an unfocused lens or trying to watch something in like 20p instead of 720p. I can see mostly fine around a room, but small details are gone. I suppose this counts as stabbing. Screw through the foot. Dad was finishing the basement. Don't remember what he was doing, but it involved longwood screws. I was 10 or 11 years old and at his heels, excitedly shadowing him. At some point I tripped over my dad's drill and caught myself with my hands a mere inch or 2 from breaking my nose on the stairs. That was close. I laughed. My mom, who was also there, started yelling, "Don't move." Look back to see the tip of the screw poking through the top of my right foot. I didn't feel it, but seeing it, geez. And yes, my dad took it out of my foot by unscrewing it. Probably shouldn't have taken it out, but this is the same dad who leaned my bloody head over the sink and rinsed out the wounds with the sprayer after I hit the road face first flying off my bike. You'll be fine. TLDR, screw attempted to drop me. Didn't feel it. Also, don't remove the object you're impaled with. I was shot with a .300 Magnum while bear hunting a month ago. I got hit in the right thigh, femur fracture, which is already known to be one of the most painful things as is. It feels odd. Actually, I didn't know what had happened at first. 1 second I was standing there, another I was on the ground unable to move. It was really confusing. The best way I can describe it is like it's warm, like a localized warm shower for a few moments. The shock set in pretty quick. I couldn't really feel the pain for about a minute and a half. That's when the other hunters started having to reach in and put pressure on the veins and arteries so I wouldn't bleed out. That hurt like hell. It's a very difficult sensation to describe, but it was a stabbing pain all over the wound. But the rest of me went numb because of hemorrhagic shock. I could feel my muscles shutting down and the blood being pulled. I went very lightheaded, and they had to keep me from passing out. Your fingers start to tighten up, and you can't move. It's a very scary feeling. Then they put the tourniquet on. Oh God, if I never feel one of those again, it will be too soon. That was the most painful thing I have ever experienced. It has to go right above the wound and shut off blood flow, so you don't keep losing blood. That made everything worse, and though I knew I needed one, it was so painful I screamed bloody murder when the EMTs put it on. Essentially, your body shuts down everything to try and save itself. But the side effect is that you can only feel the excruciating pain of the massive hole in your leg. As much as I knew passing out would make it 10x worse, I really wanted to. I can answer questions as well if anyone has any. Edit. To anyone that replies about my hunting and wants to chastise me on it, there's a special place in hell for people like you. I came here to talk about my experience with a bullet hole in my leg, not to discuss my lifestyle choices. Got stabbed in the finger and chest. I didn't really feel the stabs. I remember seeing the knife going into my chest kind of in slow motion and thinking, shit, that's really bad. The knife came out, and I was on the phone to emergency services at the time. I was screaming at the poor guy on the phone that I'd been stabbed. When the knife came out of my chest, all I really focused on was the blood pouring out of my chest. I was screaming at the guy on the phone, I've been stabbed. I'm fucking bleeding everywhere. Where are the fucking police? It's 3 a.m. Where in the fuck are they? Mind you, I live in a town of roughly 14,000 people. It took the police about 15 to 20 minutes to come from the time I called before being stabbed. The neighbor who stabbed me tried wrestling me for my phone when he climbed in through the window. After he stabbed me, he came back for a second go to try to smash my phone. I clutched that thing like it was a literal life preserver. He broke my glasses. The ambulance guys came at that point. They told me sit down and wait. So I did. They kept checking in with me verbally to see if I was okay and not faint or anything. I was fine, so I just waited for ambos to be done with the other stabbing victims. When I got to the hospital, the doctors gave me some morphine and stitched up my finger that was fine. One of the ER docs checked the depth of the stab wound in my chest with his finger. That was what really hurt. It was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. So TLDR, the stabbing itself didn't hurt, probably because of adrenaline, but the doctor who checked the depth of the wound with his finger was the most painful thing. I wouldn't call it stabbing, but once I got my foot sliced through a sharpened metal arrow decoration placed at the leg of a bench, God knows why would anyone make it like that. It never felt like a stab. I felt like something scratching my feet, but a bit hard. I wasn't looking down, so I thought my jeans is stuck somewhere in bench. This made me drag my feet away instinctively, which sliced the wound further. I still felt like a nasty jean stuck. I kept jerking my leg around without looking downwards, and thankfully one of the movement got that arrow tip out of my feet. After walking a couple of steps, I felt chilly in the feet, the kind of chill one feels during a cut. That's where I realized this could possibly be a cut. I then excused my family, because my feet felt tired to walk, and went into parking area to sit in car. Only after sitting inside car, I came to know about bleeding. I still thought bandage would be sufficient as I couldn't see it complete in dark. But when my family came back to car, they realized it's a bit more than that. I was taken to a doc, and a couple of stitches fixed that. Thankfully, that arrow wasn't much long, else it would have penetrated further. I was shot when I was a teenager. The bullet went in through the back of my right arm, through my armpit, around my ribs, and exited near my sternum. It hit a nerve in my arm, so as soon as it happened, I was bent over and my arm was up behind me, just instantly reacting to the nerve being hit. Felt a stinging pain in the arm, then numbness. A couple minutes later, I started to feel the stinging from the exit wound on my chest, and the blood from it. I happened to be wearing a dark-colored jacket, so nothing was very visible. Then the arm stopped being numb and the pain started. FYI, hit or severed nerve equals intense pain. My friends and I went to the hospital ASAP. In the ER, they had me remove my upper clothing and try to stand up and hold my breath for 30 seconds with my arms pressed back, slightly behind me, for an x-ray. That was when I seriously wanted to faint from the pain, but didn't. Got to a patient room and was still feeling the burning/stinging at the entrance and exit wounds, but also the crushing pain of the hit nerve. My friend had me squeeze his hand to try to deal with the pain, and we asked for pain relief. They gave me a shot, but it literally did nothing. 3 hours later we asked them when they would give me something for the pain, and they reminded us about the shot I'd been given earlier. Then they realized it hadn't helped and finally gave me more pain meds. The next day, my friend showed me his hand was still red and marked from me squeezing the hell out of it the night before. Literally decades later, I realized I would have probably got more meds soon and suffered less if I had been crying and or screaming, instead of squeezing my friend's hand and suffering quietly.